first, let's start with the review of the week. And the review of the week is going to be Bakurano. Bakurano is a mecha anime that is similar to something of Neon Genesis Evangelion, Razafon, Eureka 7, and even some level of Geass. It's the typical, well now typical, but mind break, psychological mecha anime. This one is not as, I would say, as well known as the others. Most people probably haven't heard of it, which is depressing because it's actually a really good story. I think one of the reasons why people haven't heard of it is because it came around the same time as Bokurano, and Bokurano is a very popular anime for good reason, by the way. It's one of the better ones that's come out in the last, I don't know, this generation. It's a good story. I mean, I'll get to it at some point. I mean, I've done Gungrave, so just because mobster anime is definitely something I enjoy doing. So the premise of Bakurano, and I'm going to try to avoid as much spoilers as I can, but keep in mind, I have to say a couple things that kind of give away one of the twists of the story. Not all the twists, just one of them. So if you guys don't want to hear like a minor spoiler that doesn't take away from the story, but it might like take away one of the twists, then obviously don't watch this. But if you guys don't care, stick around. So the premise is this: 15 students go to a nature school, and they go on this like vacation to a beach. While they're on the beach, one of the students points out to a cave, and they all go into this cave because they follow the leader. And when they get inside, they meet a guy named, and I wrote it down. I don't know his name for sure. I can't pronounce it, but Kokobelly, or Pelly, I believe his name is. Now, Kokobelly asks them a question. He says, "Do you want to play a game?" If that reminds you of Saw, well, you're not alone. I was thinking the same thing. Want to play a game? He's like Jigsaw almost. And in some ways, this anime is just as evil as Saw. Not obviously to the same extent. There's no like heavy gore in this one, but being tricked into something. So these kids, they don't know any better, right? They go, yeah, we'll play this game. What are we going to do? Defend Earth? Oh, that sounds like fun. They all have to touch this this device. I don't know the name of it. It's been a while since I watched the show, maybe like a couple months. I don't remember like specific details like that. Anyhow, so they touch this device and they get transported. They wake up basically. They don't get transported. They wake up and they're kind of confused exactly what happened. And they also probably agreed to a contract. That was part of the touching. And that comes into play one of the episodes later on, and we'll not spoil that part. Anywho, when they come to, a big mecha appears. And that mecha, they have to fight. Now, the problem is they don't really know how to. So mecha appears on their side as well. And this guy, Kokobelly, pilots it for them. And while he pilots it for them, he shows them how to use it. And they end up defeating the other one. And he explains like the whole weaknesses behind these different mechas. Basically, it's like a pod area. If you crash it, then it destroys the whole thing. I'm not going to get into what that is. That's a whole nother spoiler for the story. Anyhow, once Kokobelly does, he showed them what to do. We don't see him ever again. And then subsequently, every single time a mecha will appear, these kids will have to be the pilots. Now, here is the spoiler aspect of the story, and I have to say it because I can't really express why this anime affected me without discussing it. And that is when the first kid pilots this, they call it the Zerf, and he defeats the opposing Nightmare Frame, just kidding, the mecha. One of the kids, and I have his name here, Joan Yushiro, he touches him, and the guy falls off the mecha and dies. And so they thought that June killed him. And the reason why they thought June killed him was because June's kind of a dick in this story. I mean, all the kids are kind of weird, but June specifically is really evil. And he actually, he like beats up his sister too. He's not a good guy. But he kind of is though. If you watch a story, you'll kind of grow to love him because they explain why. And anyway, I don't want to go into details for that. That's actual spoilers. So anyways, he touches the guy, he falls over, and they think he killed him. It turns out there's a twist in this story, which is this Zerf, this gigantic mecha, runs on a specific kind of energy. And that energy is people. Each pilot, when they pilot this mecha, they're going to die afterwards. That's basically what this Mickey Mouse robot thing tells them. That orders them around. Like, is that Mickey Mouse? It's like some kind of Mickey Mouse robot flying thing that follows them around and commands each pilot to go and use his mecha. And the reason why this is such a disturbing concept and why it, why he was very what's the word? Like it was uncomfortable watching this story because every time a character was chosen to pilot this mecha, You knew they were going to die. They knew they were going to die, and they had to figure out a way to cope with that. And so it's very depressing because some people didn't respond well to it. One guy went crazy and he nearly raped a girl. That was not great. Some people were like, "Yeah, I'm doing this for my family, and I'll go forward with it." And I guess I should mention that if they don't pilot this mecha, by the way, then Earth will be destroyed. So they're basically told you either pilot this and you'll die, or everyone dies. And that's a very difficult situation for these kids to deal with, because many of them are obviously very young and they can't comprehend the consequence of that. But the kids do, for the most part, agree to this, which is one of the most stirring parts of the story. But just taking a step back and thinking about my own life, and I don't really think about if this was, if today was your last day, that song from Nickelback. But if this is your last day, how do you spend it? What do you do? What do you think about? And some of these kids, I give the story credit. They really handled well. Some did not. And it's also weird too, because they're all going to be picked at one point to pilot this thing. So I guess one of them, the winner, wouldn't die. But they don't know who that's going to be. So each kid's hoping they're not the one that's picked. And I guess in real life too, we feel the same way. Any day someone could die, we hope it's not us. And of course, if it was us, we'd be very upset. So it's upset be like that's a really bad way of putting it. But you know what I mean. It's just that whole uncomfortable feeling of knowing that the end could be any time, and literally, like, unless you're the lucky person who goes last, you're probably not going to live through this. And yet each kid kind of deals with it in their own way. And each kid, by the way, is very interesting. Each episode will go through like their backstory, why they're friends to begin with, and so you kind of feel more about them, even though some of the kids are awful people. I'm not saying they should die, but they're not exactly great people themselves. So but you still care though. And that's what I like about it. Even though they're not bad people, or they are bad people, you still feel invested into these characters. They spend enough time with their parents and their family and their friends, and eventually the government gets involved too, because when does the government not get involved when they see gigantic mechs fighting other gigantic mechs? And so they get involved, and an agent eventually joins them. There's a whole subplot with that, which was actually very interesting and very emotionally gripping too, which surprised the heck out of me, because this story is it's all over the place with that stuff. I would love to go further in details like the story, but again, this is a non-spoiler review. But I already spoiled one thing, but there's like major stuff that happened that's just... People say this story is absolutely insane, and yeah, it really is. It's completely surprised me on that part. The next thing I want to discuss when it comes to the story, obviously besides the characters and the plot, is the Mecca Battles themselves. Now, this is a story where the Mecca Battles are, how do I put this, they are important because they have to win each battle to save Earth, but they're kind of in the back. They're not like the main draw. The draw is the kids and their struggles. But what they do with the Mecca is they have they're very slow moving devices. We watch shows like Gundam or Geass, right? Even Neon Genesis Evangelion, where all the mechs, they just go really fast and you feel like there's no gravity. But these things, they move very slow, and you feel every single movement of the legs. You're watching them fight in a town, and of course, I'm not sure how. I believe it's wherever the kids are, the mech will appear. So the kids try to be in areas where they won't be in cities. But anyhow, when these things are moving, you see them crushing buildings, cars, houses, and no one's safe, by the way, which is kind of a minor spoiler on that part. But you feel every single movement. And I can't remember a mech I've watched where you feel every single movement when the thing is flying, is going across into battle. And it also makes the combat more tense than you would think, because if you move the mecha, and each person has their energy to do it, which also plays into part two, because if they're not, now let's say they're emotionally not in the right mindset, they won't win the battle, which is a whole nother aspect to the fighting. But if they don't use their energy correctly and they move their mecha in the wrong direction with the arm and they miss, that can be very costly. I mean, the difference between winning and losing in these battles is literally moving the wrong way or not figuring out what your opponent can do. It's a very slow, methodical fight, which is something I don't see often in Mecha, even in the big ones, because I don't want to go into a whole history of Mecha, but the old stuff was very, as I said, speed, quickness. There wasn't a whole lot of, you couldn't really relish in the fight. You couldn't really, there was no anticipation because everything just moves so fast. And with this fight, there's a lot of anticipation because they're both going really slow to each other, and then they're both attacking each other, and it's very slow, like, which is realistic because usually mechas don't do that stuff. And I'm not saying mechas that move really fast like Geass and Gundam are bad. I'm just saying it was nice change of pace to see something that was a little more realistic. And speaking of the mechas themselves, each one they fight is really cool. They all have like the same kind of design. They have like a bunch of lights in the front, which I'm not gonna say what that is, but I figured it out. And if you do figure out while you're watching the show, you're gonna be like really, you're gonna be disturbed, but also like feel good about yourself because you're like, oh, that's what that was. But anyhow, the different ones they fight are all well designed. There's like one that was like a big blade. It was like they're so ridiculous, but yet it works. I can't explain it, but it's really good stuff. And each fight was really tense. There's like this great music that plays too during each one. It's like a ticking clock or something. It's really good stuff. I was definitely surprised. Again, not like the best part of the story, but I think the mecha fighting itself is worth checking out if you like mecha anime. Beyond that, the animation, this is probably one that may not win over people. It's not the greatest. The kids look terrible. It looks like something made from like, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago. I guess I was thinking about this. Maybe the reason why the quality of the animation is not so good because the story itself is kind of grim. Why make really beautiful characters if they get killed off in awful ways? So I guess it kind of fits the theme. At the same time, though, I will say that it could be a little better. It's definitely one of the parts I'm not the biggest fan of. But from a positive standpoint, the intro install is very good, very memorable. I never skipped it when I was watching the story. And we were watching intro too. Each of the characters, doing their thing. Again, a lot of foreshadowing in the story, and there's a lot of that too. I guess I'll say for closing thoughts about Bakurano, because again I can't go further into it because it gets really crazy. But it's a good story with a small amount of characters you get really close to, and even though you know that technically most of them are not going to live, you still hope that they could, and they keep trying to like pull your heartstrings, like, oh, maybe the scientists find a way to maybe fix it, or they can do this, and you're like, they probably won't, but you're hoping they will, and that like, very emotional story. And again, maybe we think about a lot about my life, which is most anime don't do that. This one absolutely did. I give it like an 8 out of 10, and the reason why I give it an 8 out of 10 is because the last part of this anime, again, no spoilers, but I wanted more, and the story didn't give me enough. I'm not sure there's a manga based on this or more content in general, because I was thinking, man, you just opened like the floodgates to a whole universe of stuff, and you kind of ended there, and I was like, not my favorite part of the story. But overall, this is a great anime. I mean, if you liked Neon Genesis Evangelion and you like psychological drama, mind break, mecha stories, I think you'll like Bakurano. It's definitely one of my favorites, and it was a big surprise. I had no expectations. People said it was absolutely amazing, and